Sometimes when we're working on a project, we may create a take and love it, save it, and come back to it maybe a month later, and we have no idea where that take is. Or maybe we're just looking for a file on our computer and we also just can't find it. Maybe we can't remember what we named it and we just kind of give up. And that's why project organization and file organization is so important when it comes to making beats. It's something we kind of think as an afterthought because we're just so excited to make music. But today I'm going to share a couple tips on how you can keep your files and your tracks organized. So let's dive in. The first tip is going to be around making sure you're naming your files properly. Now, I know when you're writing a song, we're not saving right away, not necessarily a bad thing. We want to save when we have something that we feel is concrete. But as we go to save our file, sometimes we just name the song off of the vibe that we have. And I used to do that all the time, but I found that I was starting to write the rest of the song around that title or around that vibe that I gave it. And sometimes as we're working on a song, the vibe changes, the vision changes. We think, oh, it needs to go more this way, or this is more of a breakup song than a love song. And if we don't change the title of the song, then we might continue to write it in that same vibe. So my system is a little bit different. Instead of saving a project as a song title, I simply write project 1. And then when I do the next song, I call it project 2, and so on and so on. This helps me keep organized so that I know what project I'm working on simply just by going to the numbers. I also then don't have to worry about what I'm writing. It can be a love song, it can be a fast song, it can be a slow song, it can be whatever song I want, and all I have to do is associate a number with it. That helps me keep clarity while I'm writing and keep focused on what's going on inside the project without having the influence of a potential song title in the background. But you might be thinking, well, how do you know what's in that project? Well, just because it says Project 45, that doesn't give me a lot of hints. So I have a song catalog, and you can use notes, you can use Notion, you can use sometimes the notes feature inside of your DAW, and I write out details about the song. I like to keep this either in the DAW sometimes, but I like to keep it outside of the DAW so I don't have to open up the files all the time. And what I keep inside the song catalog is going to be a description of what the current vibe is, maybe just 2 or 3 words, the BPM, and where I am in the songwriting process, what instruments I have added, what I think needs to come next, and how long the song is. Do I have a verse? Is this an intro? Is it an outro? What do I think the rest of the song needs? And then when I'm working on my unfinished projects, I can scroll through my catalog and say, I think I want to work on this dusty lo-fi vibe that I started 2 months ago. Let's open it and see what it's like. It says it just needs a chorus. It's got a solid intro. Let's see how it goes. So that is a really good jumping off point if you're going to pause a project, if you've just started something really quick. Using a song catalog can really help you jump back in without you feeling like, oh, I'm opening this up and I've got to explore and figure out what's going on. So name your projects with a number. Don't let other factors influence what you're writing for that song, and keep a song catalog so you can quickly reference what's inside your project. The next tip to stay organized is going to be color coding. Now, there's a couple different ways you can go about color coding your tracks inside your DAW, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples and how I like to do it. So the first example is going to be where we're going to color code by section. You can see here that the first verse is a different color, the second verse is a different color, and the third verse is a different color. This is just so we can quickly organize and see where we need to be in the song and jump to those parts. But for me, I don't really like doing it this way because I don't know what instrument I might be looking at. I could drag some MIDI around and it accidentally end up on the wrong file. You can name these individual sections something, and I typically do name them very specific things when it comes to a specific take, or if it's the final one, or if it's just one like a working melody. But I don't like having them be all the same color like this. I prefer to have them look like this, where it's the same color all the way through, and I'll go in and specifically name each section, either if this is the intro or if this is the verse or this is the chorus, etc. So that it's the same color so I know which track it came from, and I can easily just go and click on that track and see the different takes. Because if it's a different color, it's a different track. And if it's the same color, then that means I've got multiple takes of that same track or that same idea that's supposed to be on that track. That works really well for me. Let me know which one works really well for you. Now, sometimes I also do this. I don't think this is a good way to stay organized, so I would avoid this. But what I do sometimes is I will just duplicate a track and create a second melody in the track below. And this sometimes leads to a lot of grayed out tracks in my DAW, just because I'm not using them, but I'm kind of keeping them around in case I need to go back and reference them. As I'm getting close to finishing up a song, I do go back and delete those, but sometimes it can make your DAW look messy if you're not deleting those things along the way. And you're going to have a lot of empty, unused tracks if they're just all stacked up. Like, for example, in another song I was working on, I have one melody instrument, but I have 3 copies of that instrument with muted tracks because there are different ideas I was playing with. Again, nothing wrong with having all these there, but you might want to either hide those tracks in your DAW, or if you know you're not going to use them, just go ahead and delete them. That way it frees up space and you're not looking for other tracks that have takes on it that you want. You're only focused on the track that you actually do want, and there's no other distractions. So clean up your unused tracks as you go. Another way you can stay organized is using sections inside of your DAW. Now, I visually don't like the way this looks in most DAWs, where it creates sections at the top, and it just doesn't look clean to me. But you can create sections, and there are shortcuts in multiple DAWs to where you can click the shortcut and it'll just start playing from whatever section you've created. Not my favorite thing. It's very helpful when you're doing a collab, but for me, I prefer to rely on the color coding of it. And the reason why I prefer to rely on the color coding of it is because before a new section is going to hit, you normally have some sort of transition audio or transition effect. Even though it's small, it does signal to me this is going to be a new section. So for me, I just like to do that. And if I don't see those things, it's an indicator that I need to put one in or have something in there that will lead the listener into the next section. So not having those sections in my DAW, but letting my songwriting process create it with the transition audio or transition MIDI, I think is really helpful for me. But if you want to stay organized, or you're doing something with a collab, or if it helps you separate your thoughts into intro, verse, chorus, create those sections in your DAW for sure. You can also stay organized by creating folder stacks. This is going to be where you'll highlight several tracks, and you can only right click and create a folder stack to where it will select all the tracks that you're doing and put it in a folder. So in this example, you can see that I have one for keys and I have one for Foley, where we went from having about 15-20 tracks down to about 6 or 7 because I've put all those into a folder stack. And this is also helpful to do for mixing. So if you just need to quickly look at just what's going on with the Foley or just what's going on with the keys, these folder stack options are actually going to help you just hone in on those and focus on what's going on in the sound dynamics of those elements. So folder stacks cleans up your workspace pretty fast, but you also just want to make sure that those tracks are also cleaned up. There's not a whole bunch of unused takes. So make sure you use either the hide tracks feature in your DAW or just delete them. Now, as you get a format set up for how you like to organize your sessions, whether if that's the drums are always a specific color or the keys are a specific color, or maybe you know that you like having an EQ at a certain section on all your tracks, whatever it is, the fastest way to make sure that those are consistently there is to create a template. So create a template in your DAW. Normally you can go and save the project settings as a template so that the next time you want to start a new project, probably maybe 30 or 40% of the work of the organization is already there. But sometimes it's also fun just to open up a blank session and start from scratch. I like to open up a lot of sessions and just start from scratch because I don't want to get stuck into a process and kind of maybe lose some creativity along the way. I want to be able to discover some things that are new as I'm setting up all the tracks potentially and exploring new things. There are a couple things though that by default I just know I always like. Like there's a certain EQ setting I like on all my tracks, so it's there by default. There's a certain compressor and a certain reverb setting that are my favorites to go to, so when I open up those plugins, it's there by default. Nothing wrong with having some of these defaults, and nothing wrong with having a template either. It's there to help you speed up the process, save you time, so you can spend more time being creative. Just don't let the template constrain you and make you think that you can't do something different than what you've done before. And lastly, the last tip I have for you is actually around samples. So if you're using samples in your DAW, you might just be using them from the download folders of your computer. And that isn't always bad, but if you go and clean up that folder, clean up your computer, you might accidentally delete some stuff from there. So what I do is on my desktop, I have a folder just called samples. And that folder has all the samples I need in it. And so whenever I open a new project, and if it says there's an error, relink the sample, I know exactly where to go. So make sure you keep it all in one spot. Otherwise you get these weird pop-ups that are saying, we can't locate this file. Please search for it on your computer. But if it's right there on the samples, you can just do it right there. And if you have a ton of samples, just use an external hard drive. You can get them pretty cheap on Amazon, especially if it's an SSD. You can get them for maybe $100, $120, which is pretty solid. But what do you guys think? Do you think these tips are a great way to stay organized in your DAW when it comes to what tracks you're using and what sections of the song you're working on, and just overall file management? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.